Hello, good morning everyone. We are standing today just a few days before the holiday of Pesach. Great holiday, so much to talk about it. Just going to mention one idea about Pesach, and this is, as we see that in this holiday every Jew is so careful above the norm, as we can almost say it, and the idea of removing the chametz from the house and bringing in the matzah into the house. We spend so much time on that. I wouldn't say me, but the family, the wife, the kids, working so hard, removing the chametz, scraping the walls. As we all know, we don't have to get into the details about it. That we do way even above the law. Way above what we need to do. But we know that's important. Especially as we have that famous statement of the Arizal, mentioned it many times, that whoever will be careful in removing the chametz, cleaning before Pesach. He says a person like this, whoever is very careful with that, it can be promised, can be sure that it will not sin the entire year after. I mean, it's a tremendous blessing. So it's definitely worth it to do all these preparations, all this removing the chametz and bringing in the matzah. In the spiritual sense, we know the meaning of it is that chametz represents the idea of a dough that rises. Matzah represents the idea of a dough that doesn't rise. Rising means the idea of ego. Chametz represents the idea of ego. Matzah represents the idea of humility. And this is why we have to remove all ego before this holiday of Pesach. Because the holiday of Pesach has one idea, and the idea is that we are recipients to receive the miracles from God the first time, and every year again and again. And this idea is represented by the matzah, that we have the humility. And when you have humility, you are a good recipient. As the famous expression being said, a full cup cannot absorb, but an empty cup can absorb everything. And that's the idea of Pesach, be able to absorb the miracles of God. And that's why we have to be empty, we have to have the humility. And that humility makes us to be that we can celebrate and receive again all these miracles of Pesach. And this is why we are so careful, so involved in the idea of removing the ego, removing the chametz, and bringing in the matzah, bringing in the humility, humbleness, etc. We gotta hope every year that it comes Pesach. We're so nervous about it, so caring about it. But we gotta hope every year that we'll be able to actually remove our ego in the spiritual sense. Or the same thing, the physical sense, to remove the chametz from the house, to bring in the humility, to bring in the matzah in the house. And we have to learn to be able to do so on the greatest level possible. Just wanted to share a great story that was said by a great rabbi. His name was Rabbi Akiva Sofer. I remember him from Jerusalem. Rabbi Akiva Sofer was a great grandson of the great luminary of Am Yisrael, the Chatam Sofer. And after the war, he came to Israel and he re-established the yeshiva of the Chatam Sofer in Jerusalem, and it's still today, it's called the yeshiva of Pressburg in Jerusalem. And he is the head of that yeshiva, the founder of the yeshiva, continuing the great legacy of his great-grandfather, the Chatam Sofer. His name is Rabbi Akiva Sofer. And the story I just wanted to share with him, that he once spoke about his own story that he had with the fifth Rebbe of Chabad, the Rebbe Rashab. And he said there was once a time that he came to visit the Rebbe Rashab, Rabbi Sholem Ber of Lubavitch. This was prior of World War I. And the Rebbe Rashab went to visit somewhere in Europe, and he came to see him. And prior walking into his room to see him, the Rebbe Rashab's wife asked him, this is the way he says the story about himself. He asked me, you're going to my husband to talk to him. I'm sure you're going to talk to him about Torah. Could you please ask him and speak to him? He should go to a dentist to take care of his teeth. He's got a lot of cavities and he's got tremendous pain. And I feel horrible for him. But he does not want to go. Please talk to him and he should go to a doctor, he should go to a dentist to take care of his teeth. And the Rabbi Sofer says, for sure I will do so. He walked in, this is the story says, I walked into the Rebbe and we started talking about different things of Torah. And in the words of talking, I brought up the idea, Rabbi, why don't you go to a dentist? The Gemara tells us that the worst pain a human can have is pain of teeth. It's very, very harsh pain. And you have pain, you got to take care of it once you go to a doctor. So he answered me, when I go to a doctor, a dentist, he's going to do fillings of my cavities. The fillings could be a problem. There is chametz inside them. And because there's chametz inside them, then when it comes Pesach, I'm going to have chametz in my mouth. I can't take it out. Rabbi Sofer, we know, is a great rabbi, a great learned man. He started bringing many, many proofs that chametz is not really chametz, is nothing to worry about. And the best proof is everybody does it. And he was giving his opinion, when the Rebbe Rashab gave his opinion, and it was going back and forth about the opinions, if that's really called chametz, under any circumstance, if a filling is called chametz or not. And after the whole conversation, the Rabbi Sofer says, we came that it's not really chametz. It's a scar of a scar of a scar of chametz. And there's nothing to worry about it. You can go to a dentist. But the Rebbe Rashab concluded, this is what Rabbi Sofer says, and he says, you're right. This is only a scar of a scar of a scar of chametz. So he tells him, but the pain is terrible pain, you got to go to a doctor. So the Rebbe Rashab tells me, says the rabbi, for me, having pain of the teeth is not as bad than the pain that I will have when I have a scar of a scar of a scar of chametz in my mouth. That's a much worse pain to me. I can't handle this pain. That's why I'm not going to go to the doctor. Rabbi Sofer concludes the story, says, that's called a real great Jew. What does it mean by him? He does not want to have chametz on Pesach. By him, it's worth to have the pain of teeth, as we know. It's a horrible pain. Than having the pain of a scar of chametz in his mouth. That's a symbol of a story. What does it mean not having chametz on Pesach? For sure, we're not in that level. But at least we have to learn what does it mean, the great mitzvah of getting ready for Pesach, removing our chametz, bringing in the matzah, the humility. With all this, God should help us. We should be able to remove our chametz. When we have a matzah Pesach with a great simcha, with a great joy, we should be a recipient to receive the great blessings of God of Pesach, that we should have a real Pesach, the Pesach of the first redemption, and a Pesach of the last redemption. Have yourself a beautiful holiday.